Were there other virgin births? No, there simply weren't. Now, often when I say that, I'll get people who will respond to me saying that, hey, we have all these other different virgin births, and then they rattle off a number of different names. The issue is that these individuals have never actually looked at the primary sources. They're simply repeating what others have said. Now, honestly, I get it. I used to do the same thing. You believe what people have put out there because why shouldn't you believe? You don't expect them to be lying. But the fact is, maybe they're not lying, they're just mistaken. So let's actually look through a number of supposed virgin births and explain why they aren't virgin births. So the first possibility here is Perseus. Now it is said that Danae, his mother, was visited by a golden shower. Now here's the thing, if you actually read the entire story, she wasn't impregnated by a golden shower. It's just that Zeus, that's how he appeared to her. And then, well, they got it on. And that's how Perseus was conceived. It was through sexual union. Yes, Zeus appears in the form of a golden shower, but that's just how he first appears. They then have intercourse. So, not a virgin birth. Then we have Alexander the Great. Now, Alexander the Great has a number of different miraculous birth stories depending on which god is kind of placed there. Now, it is true that in one of these stories, you do have his mother having a dream or a vision that her womb is struck by Zeus, and then she finds out that she's pregnant. Now, this is just to show her that her son that she's already pregnant with is something that is more than just human, that he's more than just a regular child, that he is godly in some way, that he's connected to Zeus. This isn't her becoming pregnant by a lightning bolt. This is a sign of who her child will be. And really, we have no records that actually say that Alexander the Great was born of a virgin. That simply doesn't come up. Then we have the birth of Mars from Juno. So this gets a little bit complicated because we're actually looking at Roman mythology that's based on Greek mythology. So Juno would actually be Hera, Jupiter, Juno's husband, would be Zeus, and Mars is attached to Aries. Now in virtually every single story that we have Jupiter and Juno having Mars together, that they have intercourse and then give birth to a child. Now there's one outlier here, and that's by Ovid right around the 1st century. In this story, we have one individual claiming that they were the ones who actually impregnated Juno through magic. Now, here's a few problems. One, this is an outlier. This is not the traditional story. No one else believed this. No one else thought that Juno might have had a virgin birth. And in fact, it's never called a virgin birth. Second, Juno was not a virgin. She had had sex with Zeus or Jupiter. This is something that is already clarified. She is not a virgin. She's the wife of Jupiter, who is sex crazed. She definitely is not a virgin. And finally, this is simply a story by one individual within Ovid's work that claims to be doing all these miraculous things, even though no one else seems to be aware of this. So maybe at best, we have a sexless birth here, but it's really not a virgin birth, and it's just something that one individual is claiming within this story. Now we can jump to Buddha. Virtually none of the stories say that he was born of a virgin. In fact, his parents were married for 20 years. So the idea that they remain virgins for this entire period simply is nonsensical. Now, when we do get to this tradition that some people have claimed to be virgin, we are actually looking at something long after Jesus. So we can't say that Jesus' birth was based on this story. But when we actually look at this tradition in Buddhism, what we see is not a virgin birth. We have a dream that Buddha's mother is becoming pregnant. And this is really a sign as to what will become. These individuals, Buddha's parents, were already trying to have a child, and then they have a dream that they will in fact have a child. That's not a virgin birth. That is simply a dream. And then we jump to Krishna. Now, there is nothing within the Hindu scriptures that say that Krishna was actually born of a virgin. It simply doesn't appear. This claim really doesn't appear until the 1880s with Percy Graves, when he is making up stuff in order to purport this view that there are already individuals who lived prior to Jesus that shared the same story. It's a myth from the 1880s. Now, this particular individual claims that there's an Aztec story about a virgin birth too, but since I have no idea what story they're relating to, I can't really say anything about it. So that one we'll just strike off because we don't actually have a story in order to even look at. From there, though, we go to Horus. Now, the claim is that Horus was born after Osiris died. And that's true, but if you actually look at the mythology, what happens is that you have Isis, who is grieving, who searches the world for Osiris. The one body part that she can't find is, well, his phallic object. Now, she brings him back to life, kind of. It's kind of this intermediary position that he's brought back to. And then she makes a magical phallus. And that is how she becomes pregnant, by having intercourse with her husband that she's just brought back. So, not a virgin birth at all. And finally, we get to Romulus and Remus. Now, this really comes from Plutarch. And Plutarch actually gives us a variety of different stories about how these individuals were born. One of those stories is that Mars descended upon a Vestal virgin and then, well, had intercourse with her, and these two individuals were born. Not a virgin birth story. Yes, their mother was a Vestal virgin, but she then had intercourse with Mars and was no longer a virgin. So when we look at any of these stories, what we don't get are virgins. There are no other virgin birth stories. We have other miraculous birth stories, but the virgin birth story is different. It's unique. And it's unique for a very specific reason. It's trying to depict Jesus in a unique manner. Now, the framework that they're using is this Jewish framework where we have miraculous births as well. So the whole idea that we have to look at other places in order to figure out why Jesus would have a miraculous birth is also nonsense. We can actually look within Judaism. But even if we look at the whole scene here, we don't have other virgin births. And the problem is, people are not actually reading the primary sources. They're not going and checking their facts. They're just repeating what other people have said. And often, what other people have said on this subject is simply wrong. And in fact, we can trace a lot of this information back to the 1880s with Kersey Graves. So, no, there are no other virgin birth stories through history. That simply is false. The birth story of Jesus is unique. That doesn't mean that it's true. It doesn't mean that there are no other miraculous birth stories. It just means that his birth story is rather unique.